So here's what I'll be building. My name's Johnny, and if you can't tell, I've got the flu. Death race. Not this death race. This death race. In the 70s, we had a bit of a predisposition for making near-future dystopian films. Among those, some quite famous franchises, so things like Planet of the Apes, Westworld, THX 1138, Soylent Green,
L'Chaim,
Rollerball, Logan's Run, Clockwork Orange. I managed to catch Death Race 2000 on one of the various streaming services. I'm sure you can find it somewhere. The crazy, wacky racer style car designs inspired me to crack open Blender and try and model one. Particularly the car driven by the main protagonist in the film, Frankenstein, which appears to be a Corvette or something, but I think it's completely fabricated for the film. It's supposed to be an alligator, I think. Interesting facts about this film. This was Sylvester Stallone's last film before he made it big with Rocky. There was some controversy around the look of Frankenstein's helmet versus Darth Vader's helmet, which looked similar, and it looked like Star Wars ripped off the look from this film, but I think it was just Convergent Evolution or something like that. Originally, they had planned for Peter Fonda to play the character of Frankenstein, but he was unable to play the role due to scheduling conflicts. So Peter Fonda's loss is David Carradine's gain, because David Carradine took a percentage of the profits from the film and did quite alright from it, because it became a bit of a cult hit back in the day. So the less said about the 2008 remake with Jason Statham, the better. So yeah, on with the actual modelling. If my version of Blender looks unusual, it's because I've got a custom template for new projects. So I already start with a shader and everything in place. Just makes things quicker when it comes to actually doing new projects. So the first step is getting that default cube and subdividing it and blocking out the basic shape of the car. So you've probably seen this a million times. I won't sort of go into too much detail here. I'm going to skip a lot of the more less interesting stuff and just skip to the meat of it. So yeah, fleshing out the actual shape of the car. I had some really good reference which I found on our website, which I'll link in the description, that had all the different angles of the car, which is really handy. And so now it comes to modelling the wheel arches, and one thing I've learned from modelling a few cars now is to model these initially as separate objects, because what that allows you to do is to have different topology for the wheel arch to allow you to do those curves and stuff, and you're not restricted by trying to cut shapes into the topology of the body. It can be a challenge because you may have different lines, different loops and everything else. So the other thing as well is, like with this example here, this car has angled and flared wheel arches. So having a separate object allows me to line it up and angle it, as you can see here from this angle, and then build my arch based on that. So trying to do that, pulling shapes out of the body, would be extremely difficult. So always, where possible, take the simplest route, I guess. So yeah, that's what I did. And so now, and here I'm just making liberal use of the G key to slide those vertices around and smooth out that transition from the flared wheel arch to the body. So yeah, a lot of the same stuff here, I guess. And sort of moving on to the that sort of classic Corvette sort of edge here. In as simple a way as possible, I'm just pulling these vertices out to then create that kind of crease towards the edge of the bonnet like they have. Even though it's not a Corvette. I think it's very strongly designed to resemble one. But yeah. So that's most of the body created. So here I'm creating the windscreen, which is quite a challenging shape to create in 3D, at least for me. So what I did was I blocked it out in a very rough manner, and then started using the knife tool to cut in a shape, and then it's a bit like hollowing out marble, I guess. I don't know. There's probably a better way of doing this with something fancy like curves or something, lofting a shape. But I did it the hard way and fudged it into place, and it kind of works. It's really only to just kind of like look at. I'm not going to use this in a game or anything, so it's not really optimized for anything much. So moving on to the wheels, I did finally have to use my first cylinder. Until this point, I tried to keep things pure by building everything from the initial cube. But with the wheels, I wanted a bit more detail, so yeah. I had to cheat and use a cylinder. But if there's any consolation, later on I have to go back and change them anyway, because I wasn't paying attention to the source material and made completely the wrong wheels. So moving on to the interior now, I just start modelling out sort of a basic sort of manual bevel. Then quickly extrude and change the colour for the interior to give that sort of leather effect. And initially model out the wrong kind of chairs, look at the reference and then do them correctly, which they have these kind of like very rich leather bucket seat kind of things. So yeah, here's me doing that. Again, I probably could have done this a better way, but I just used the bridge edge loop things to merge the two cushions together, and then another cylinder to do the headrests. Hopefully that's not considered cheating. I did do everything else manually. Oh yeah, just adding some trim to the windscreen there, so it looks a bit fancier. Then I think now I'm adding the fog lights, or the fog light holes, whatever these little holes are. I think most of this is just like, it's not even practical, it's not part of the car, it's not like an air intake or anything, it's just like a shape. Most of the stuff on this car is fake, including the engine on the back. That whole supercharged block at the back of the car isn't actually the real engine, which is kind of interesting. So for the steering wheel, I'm reusing the geometry from the wheels to get that sort of shape, and then not paying attention to the reference once again to then have to redo what I've built, because always check your reference as much as possible, because you'll save yourself a lot of time modelling stuff that isn't there. So it's getting pretty much complete now, just for the is this the, I think I'm building the engine here. Yeah, there you go. So this is just the oh no, I'm building the alligator spine. I'm not entirely sure that alligators do have pointy spines in real life, but I guess, you know, give them a bit of artistic license here. And then just adding stuff like the I think the roll cage. Do I do that next? I can't think. Oh no, get back to the engine. So that's sort of a supercharger thing, and reuse the tail lights for the intake things. As much as possible, try not to add new primitives, just because it's more of a challenge, I guess, to use the geometry that is there to then build all the other stuff. So
Where I already have a cylinder or something, like with the wheels, to then build the steering wheel, I'll try and reuse stuff. So the the rear lights, I use both for the intakes on the supercharger, and in a second I will use them again to add the sort of dials to the dashboard. It's kind of satisfying to reuse stuff. So there you go, yep. I've copied the rear headlamps and then reused them in the dashboard. So I think we're almost done. The last thing to make is the sort of teeth, the gator teeth. So the same technique as I do for the rest of the model, just basically duplicating a face, scaling the edges to 0, so it sort of squares up all the lines again, to then extrude out and then make the tooth, which I'll duplicate a few times to then make that sort of crooked looking gator smile. And then I think all that remains is to go back to the wheels that I forgot to do and fix those. I've said it a couple of times already, but yeah, I don't seem to learn my lesson. So if you're building something from reference and you want it to look like that thing you're making, it sounds obvious, but check your reference as much as possible, frequently, because what you can do is what I did here is I was only looking at the wheels from the side view and didn't realise they had these kind of hubs that was kind of sunken in with these kind of spoke effect wheels. So yeah, I've had to go back and remake them, but I mean it doesn't really matter in this because it's just me messing around for a hobby. But yeah, if you're doing this in a sort of semi-professional capacity, then yeah, or looking to be professional, then yeah, the right way to do things is to always check your reference as much as possible. So yeah, a bit of time wasted having to remake these wheels again, but I think it adds to the sort of final look of the vehicle and makes it look closer to the real thing. One final bonus thing, I added some text to the license plate, or the registration plate, whatever it's called. So what happens with blended text is it sort of kind of produces, if you convert the text object to a mesh, you get a non-contiguous surface, so the top, side and bottom surfaces are separated on these meshes. So what you can do is use the remesh mod to then turn it into voxels, and with a bit of tweaking get like a low poly sort of approximation of that same text object. And that's what I've done here for the number plates, just so it's a bit sort of tidier. I mean, if you're doing super high resolution stuff, then yeah, sure, use the text object. But for here, I mean, you're only looking at it covering a few pixels, so make it into this optimized mesh instead.
If you've managed to stay this far, or you've skipped here, either way, I put the model on Sketchfab so you can download it, and if you so desire. It's quite a quirky niche thing that I've modelled here, so if you have suggestions for the next thing I should possibly make that might have more general appeal, do comment below, because I do read them. See you next time.